It's going to be a busy class. Um, there's quite a bit of slides, so it might go a little bit over an hour, especially if we take some Q&A. So bear with me as much as possible. I won't be answering any questions while I do the lesson, because then I get a little bit distracting. I'm going to ask everyone to remain on mute, as it makes it easier so that there's no background noise. If there is background noise, I have to stop to just mute everybody and then continue the lesson, inshallah. And then towards the end, if we have some time left, inshallah, I'll take some questions. But I'll try not to keep it too long, so as I know everyone has work and everything else as well. So if you've never been to any of my webinars or classes, it's good that we start with an introduction as to who I am, because that helps understand where I am and why I'm teaching this information. My name is Aiman Attar. Aiman in Arabic means faith, and Attar means herbalist or perfumist, the ones who uses herbs or essential oils and perfumes. And subhanAllah, my name sort of came to life, and all accidentally. I started studying Islam back in 2007, 2008. Around that time, I started studying Islam. I took courses in Aqidah and Tafsir and Fiqh, and about, the tazkiyah of the heart and the names and attributes of Allah. And then in about 2014, when I became allergic to peppers, I took interest in prophetic medicine, Islamic medicine, and herbalism. And for the past 10 years now, subhanAllah, I've been researching and writing and teaching. I only started teaching about 2 years ago. I entered the teaching space. I was keeping all the information to myself, everything I had researched and learned. I'd authored a book, but I decided that it was really time to share this information with the public and allow everyone to benefit the way I've benefited and my family and friends have benefited. So some of you might know that I published a book called The Islamic Medicine's Guide to the Body Types. I also have a book called The Ramadan Remedy, which I'll be promoting again for free, that everyone can download and use this Ramadan, inshallah. I teach a number of courses. I teach the Nurasunna Rediscover Wellness, which is like a foundational class that helps you really get to understand the history of medicine. What is Islamic medicine, prophetic medicine? How did it become modern medicine? Where do things go wrong? What's the truth about, meats and wheats and dairy? What is really the sunnah food? What are the superfoods? I just dispel the myths and I help give clarity. And then I close off the course with 7 healing therapies that are found in Islamic medicine, from hijama to water therapy to herbs. And I give you things that are practical, inshallah, in that course as well. The Living by Design Mentorship Program is actually a longer course. This is meant to be 6 months long. It started in January and I'll be running it until June. And then I'll run the second one from July until December, inshallah. And what this course is more about is mentorship. So I give you things that are practical, things that you can learn and implement in your homes and your lives. All the lessons, all the food lists, it's all focused on how to use food and herbs to rebalance yourself, to restore your health, and to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every lesson always has at least one ayah or one hadith that we share and we talk about. I always share a recipe. I always share a herb. I give you my own life lessons as well as the learnings that I've acquired over the years. So this is a 12-step transformation for the 6-month coaching program. The first lesson was about the mindset, goals, and checklists and how to get ready for transformation, as we are taught by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like what are the things that we need to do. This one is how to actually prepare for success in your kitchen and how to make it easier for you to cook healthier foods with the techniques that I give, as well as some of the examples. Then the next week, inshallah, I'm going to be teaching about herbs. Then we continue to salads and soups and pilafs, a technique called scented with meat, fermented vegetables, as well as yogurt and kefir, how to build confidence in the kitchen, what are the 6 medicinal tastes, and then ready, set, and go bloom, which is the closing of the course and a surprise. I don't actually tell you much about what's in there, but it's a surprise. So this is an interesting hadith that I came across, and I thought it would be very interesting to share with everyone. This hadith actually gives me a lot of comfort, and this is something that we should all learn to say at the end of our meal. The Abu Ayyub al-Ansari narrated that the Prophet Muhammad said, after he ate and drank, he would say, praise to Allah, who has given us food and drink and made it easy to swallow and provided an exit for it. Now, if you're someone like me who has food allergies, that really touches my heart. The idea that it's been made easy to swallow, because when I have any allergic reactions, the first thing that happens is it becomes difficult to swallow. There's tightening in my throat. Um, and this hadith really touches my heart because it allows me to know what it feels like when things don't go down so well. And as well as provided an exit for it. How many people suffer from irritable bowel or constipation, and the idea of eating and how it has to exit their body is really a struggle for them. So, you know, Islam, alhamdulillah, and the prophetic sunnah encompasses everything we go through. You will, the more you study it, you know, regardless of how many years I've been doing it, I still come across hadiths that I've never come across before, things that are new that I'm still learning. It's an ocean of knowledge, subhanAllah. And I highly encourage that if you're not in a course like this, that at least you continue to read from the hadith and the books that are authored out there, because this is knowledge that brings us closer to Allah and helps us appreciate the way He's designed us and how we're supposed to live in accordance to what He's designed. My personal journey as the family chef was I started as my mother's helper in the kitchen at the age of 11 or 12. I'm of Syrian background, so it was common for us to learn how to chop vegetables or make fruits and salads and just prepare the meal, but not actually cook the meal itself. My mother wouldn't allow that. I actually didn't start cooking on my own until I had gotten married at the age of 21 and moved out. And that's when I really started to experiment with cooking with foods. My first mother-in-law is Lebanese, and she had a more diverse palate than my own family. My parents were very traditional Syrian, so all of our foods were Syrian dishes. Whereas my mother-in-law, who's Lebanese, had lived in France and Lebanon and Canada, and so she had friends from all over the world. So she had learned international foods, and so I learned how to make things like biryani from her, and I learned how to cook, you know, a lot of French dishes and a lot of pasta dishes from her, things that I hadn't been exposed to in my own home. Then I got divorced, and then I got remarried again, and then my second mother-in-law was Pakistani, and I learned from her how to cook Indo-Pak food, which is completely different from Mediterranean food, and, you know, European food and like Italian food and French food. So learning how to cook Indo-Pak food such as rotis and parathas and biryani, nahari, aloo kofta, all from scratch was a lot of work, and it gave me a lot of appreciation for how foods evolve from one place to another, and you start to see similarities between different countries. And then through my own research, I expanded on traditional foods, and I learned cooking techniques such as how to make sourdough and fermented foods and kombucha, and just get a little bit more in touch with traditional cooking techniques, as I find that the traditional way of cooking was more in balance to the present cooking techniques and nutrition that we have right now. So there was a lot of interest in what was the way things used to be taught, alhamdulillah. Now, I want you to think of your kitchen as the alchemist's lab. This is a place of wondrous creations, and they're soothing to the body and the soul, the nephs, when you're cooking in the kitchen. This is where you can whip up nourishing meals and soups and warm breads and fermented goodness, healing remedies and tantalizing desserts, and even deodorants and lotions. There's so much that you can produce in your own kitchen. You just have to enter it with a curious mind, a forgiving heart, and an adventurous soul. And that way you'll never be disappointed. And now the reason why I say forgiving heart is because we tend to really punish ourselves when we make mistakes in the kitchen. If you burn a meal, if it's too salty, if it's too dry, if there's something not right with the food, as the family chef, we can get really discouraged and we can feel like, oh, it's a failure. Oh, I don't want to do this again. I'm not going to try it again. So you have to have a forgiving heart if you want to be in the alchemist's lab, right? If you want to experiment and grow as a chef, you have to allow yourself to make mistakes in order for you to learn how to make it better and better. It took me 5 years to perfect the roti. Like when I made roti, the first 5 years, I say it was atrocious. Some days it was good, some days it was terrible, sometimes it was really hard and cracked. It was definitely not a circle. It took a long time for it to become a circle. But I didn't give up and I kept on persisting, and I didn't make it that often. So if I made it only once a week or twice a week, my hand didn't really get the hang of it until I would say by my 5th year did I feel like, wow, my rotis are on point right now, and I could be proud of the fact that I can make rotis. So it really did require that I had a forgiving heart for myself when I messed up and nobody ate it and I had to throw it out. I had to be okay that this was part of the learning process. Not that I'm encouraging food waste, But I think that there are times where we do burn the foods. I've burned meals and I've had to throw it out in the garbage and order pizza instead because I messed up in the kitchen. And this is part of human nature. And if you don't have a forgiving heart towards yourself in the kitchen, trust me, no one else will. No one's going to be forgiving towards you if you're not forgiving towards yourself. So you have to set that standard. Now, all of you have your own stories of how you became the family chef. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's by necessity, sometimes it's the wife who does all the cooking, and sometimes it's the husband or the children or the grandparents. Cooking is neither an art nor a science, but it's a combination of skill, nephus, creativity, bravery, and curiosity, and it's a reflection of who you are. Now, nephus is an Arabic concept, and it's called the secret ingredient to delicious meals. In Arabic, nephus actually means breath or spirit, and it's often used to describe someone as having the secret sauce to creating exceptional meals, even if they're only serving eggs. And if they say someone has the nephus for cooking, it means anything they cook, it's going to taste good. But this isn't far from the truth. Cooking comes from an inner place of peace with oneself, a place of confidence and adventure. And I'm sure you've noticed if you've ever walked into the kitchen to cook a meal and you weren't in a good mood, you were upset, you were stressed, you were sad, most often the meals are disastrous. You might not like it, it might not feel good, taste good. And it really it really is that way because it reflects who you are on the inside and what you're feeling. So you want to enter the kitchen in a way where you allow it to be a place to de-stress you and not increase your stress. And there's ways to do that, which I teach, inshallah. So pay attention to that inner voice. You know, critical self-talk will destroy your nephus. If you're going to walk into the kitchen and just listen to all the negative self-criticism, it's not going to give you the opportunity to be creative and to have confidence. Resentment. So if you're going into the kitchen and resenting that you have to cook and no one else is cooking and no one else is picking up the slack in the kitchen, then it's going to kill your passion for cooking because you're walking in with resentment. If you don't have the confidence, then it's going to steal from your curiosity, from your ability to want to try new things. And if you're cooking against your will, it really is self-sabotage. If you know you're not in the mood to cook, then don't cook. Find another avenue to feed the family, whether it's, you know, tuna sandwiches or a can of beans that everyone's just going to eat tonight, or eggs, or something that doesn't require you to spend a lot of time putting food, or allow someone else to cook or order in if you have to. But don't cook when you're not in the mood to cook, because again, this can all sabotage our love and our interest in cooking. You have to do it with heart, and either get yourself to that state where you could have it with heart, but if you're not in that state, then eat something simple. And we do that often in my house. If I don't feel like cooking, I'll boil pasta, we put yogurt on it, we sprinkle it with some mint and olive oil, and we eat that. That's our dinner, and nobody complains. You know, we're allowed to have downtime too as moms, as the family chef. We can't always be on, we can't always be cooking 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not humanly possible. So what does your cooking say about you? Does your cooking say that you're tired? Does it say that you're bored? Does it say that you're hurt by the criticisms of the meals that you prepare? Does it say that you're resentful? Or does it show that you're excited and you're adventurous? Does it show that you're cooking with love? One of the first ways that I like to teach when it comes to how to prepare for success is to realize that cooking isn't just you walking into the kitchen and turning on a stove. There's so much that goes into cooking a meal. There's a lot of thought and energy, and it's usually, for me, it starts from the night before. So before I go to sleep, I'm always thinking about, well, what am I going to feed them tomorrow? So if I need to defrost meat, I've taken out the meat. If I need to have veggies that I don't have in the fridge, that I might need to make a list for myself to go to the market the next day. So knowing what to cook and what grocery items are needed, what needs to be prepared, washed, cut, chopped, how much time is it actually going to take to prepare the meal, and then the post-cooking cleanup, all of these things are quite labor intensive and they take up a lot of mental space. So what I'm trying to do is simplify some of these things by giving you things that make it easier to whip up food, and techniques that also help. And in the first lesson, I actually said that you should always have a kitchen buddy. So whether it's your child, your spouse or a friend, somebody that can be in the kitchen with you, somebody's chopping, peeling, shredding while you're doing other things. And having that prep time with someone else actually helps you bond. It helps you teach if it's your children, if it's your spouse, it helps you bond with them. But it's also everybody's responsibility to be in the kitchen to create nourishing meals. It's not just the family chef. You would never go into a restaurant and only see one person in the kitchen. There's always the chef and the sous chef and other people. So you want to create that in your own home as well. You have to introduce your kids to the kitchen. And I teach that a lot in the first lesson, where how to do that and at what age you can get them to do what. But it's important that you don't put the entire burden of cooking just on yourself. Otherwise, it will wear you down. And then sometimes you will end up building resentment. So it's your job to invite people to the kitchen and not just make it only your responsibility. Even if it's something as simple as peeling, like peel the potatoes for me, or chop the onions for me, or peel the garlic. I used to get my 6-year-old to peel garlic for me, and him and I would chat while he did it and I got to do something else. There's a thing called decision fatigue, and Dr. McLean from the American Medical Association states the idea that after making so many decisions in the day, your ability to make more and more decisions only becomes worse. The more decisions you have to make, the more fatigue you develop, and the more difficult it becomes. So some of the techniques that I'm going to show you is how to reduce this decision fatigue. So there's 5 ways. One is knowing the time portioning. So how much time is a meal going to take? Passive cooking versus active cooking. What goes into your 3-course meal? And I'll explain what I mean by that. And then what things can be pre-chopped and how to cook once and eat twice so that you're not in the kitchen every day cooking fresh meals all the time from scratch. So you should have in the workbook that I give to the class, I give you a section where you could write these out for yourself. So this is my family's go-to meals and how long it takes me to prepare each one. If I need to cook something quickly, I either am not in the mood to cook, or I'm tired, or I don't have much time, then I usually go to this list to see what can I cook quickly that's under 30 minutes. And it might be something as simple as a lentil soup for dinner. At times, and sometimes it's just hamburgers, or sometimes it's just a fava bean salad that I can whip together quickly. If I know I have more time and I prepared the night before, then these are the items that I could do in less than an hour. And then if it's a special occasion and I really want to do something fancy, then I prepare for a meal that's going to take me over an hour. Sometimes it could take 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on the type of meals that we're making. But this is a list that I don't go to very often. It may be if I'm inviting a special guest or there's a special occasion. But it's not going to be, I don't make stuffed grape leaves for my family all the time. It might happen once every 6 months. It takes quite a bit of time to do it. And so I don't believe in investing that time in just cooking. I don't see the need for them to have these special meals all the time, like on a monthly basis. It could be done on a more rare occasion. Now, passive cooking is the things that can cook on their own that doesn't require you to be there doing it. And so if you're boiling potatoes or beetroot or chicken or meat, they can boil on the stove for an hour without you actually having to be there by the stove, stirring it constantly or checking up on it all the time. If you bake chicken or you bake potatoes or you bake your roasted veggies, that can sit in the oven for an hour without you having to do anything. So literally, if I know I'm going to be teaching a class, there are times where I'll throw something into the oven at the beginning of the class, and then at the end of the class, I get out and I go to the kitchen and my baked chicken and potatoes are ready for us to eat. So that way I didn't have to be in the kitchen while that meal was being prepared, being cooked. Whereas if you're frying food or if you're grilling food, you tend to have to stand by the stove to do that active cooking. So these are the foods that require you to stand there and be present. So chopping vegetables, peeling vegetables, grilling meats, frying meats, shredding. These are things that require your hands. And so you have to physically be there. It's not going to do it on its own. Now, when I say 3-course meal, I don't want you to think anything big and fancy, because remember, the sunnah is still to only eat a third of the stomach, which is about the size of a bowl. Or if you've seen my example, I always use the water bottle example. You don't want to be eating more than a cup, especially as Ramadan approaches. Everyone's stomach is going to naturally shrink in Ramadan because we're fasting all day. To force your stomach to eat more than a third in Ramadan is going to cause a lot of pain and bloating. So that's something to really pay attention to. So get a cereal bowl, Fill your cereal bowl with the meal that you're going to eat. Eat it, allow yourself to rest. In 2-3 hours, if you're hungry again, you can eat again, but just don't overfill in one time. So smaller portions, more frequent, is a lot healthier than bigger portions only twice a day. So if I was serving my family a chicken pilau, my salad with that would be a yogurt salad, which is like yogurts, cucumbers, onions. And then for dessert, I might give them clementines or some type of fruit. Or if it was a dessert, it might be like date balls, or even if I was making a cake. But I always plan, because I know that we naturally gravitate to something sweet after our meal. So I always plan like, okay, what do we need to complete the meal? Sometimes it's just dates. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. But if you mentally plan for this, then you're not a sort of reactionary that, oh, my kids now after dinner are harassing me for something to eat, something sweet. They want chocolate, they want candy. If you actually give it to them before they ask for it, you give them the fruit or you give them the dates before they ask for it, that need for sugar diminishes. And so they're not really looking for ice cream and cake all the time. So this would be what I would serve. It would be like the chicken and the rice. There would be a yogurt salad on the side, and then the clementine after their dinner. Sorry, I skipped over a lot. I don't know how that happened. There we go. So that is there. Now, please don't do this. And I know a lot of us are guilty of this, myself included, whether it's Ramadan or breakfast or any time of the day or a weekend, is we tend to fill a table with many different options. We might make, muffins and fruit salad and cake and pancakes and crepes. Like we might just fill, or even for iftar, we might do samosas and chicken and salad and soup. We might just do so much because we think it's all healthy and nourishing. But what we're actually encouraging is overeating. We're teaching our children to overeat. We're teaching them to feed their nephs. We're really teaching them. It's very gluttonous to do this, and it's okay to do it once in a while where it's a special occasion and you create a big spread. You've got family or friends coming over and you do a spread of food for everyone to have a buffet. That's fine. But when you start to live like this on a daily basis, and I do know people who live like this on a daily basis because we were guilty of it for a long time, is that it starts to teach everyone to have a negative relationship with food. And it would become so much so that children would become picky. They don't want to eat this because, they want that. And then if you start to serve less, then they start to become pickier, like, oh, well, I want you to do more options. So every child will start to demand their own thing. It got to a point where I'd have one child want crepes and one child want pancakes and one child want eggs, that I would have to make so many different options for everyone. And as your family gets bigger in size, the workload gets bigger for you. So to keep it healthier for everyone, for yourself and for your children, don't create a table spread of options. If you're trying to teach the concept of only eating 1/3, you don't want to give them so much to choose from in one shot, because they're just going to end up overeating in order to get everything that their eyes crave. And the eyes are hungrier than the stomach. Our eyes will crave everything we look at. We want to taste it. We want to put it into our stomach. So if you put less on the table, you're going to make it less that they're going to overeat. Now, the pre-chopped is not the same as meal preps. And I know there's this huge trend online right now about how to prepare food for the entire week so that you don't have to cook every day. This isn't what I'm talking about, because meal prepping, the way it's done online, is that you're cooking one meal or two meals. You're grilling everything, you're doing everything on a Sunday, and you're packaging it into Tupperwares and you're throwing it in your fridge, and then you're just pulling out the Tupperware and eating it. This isn't what I mean at all, because to do it that way, there's a few issues. One, the food becomes stale every single day. Bacteria grows in foods that sit in the fridge. So by day 3, day 4, day 5, it has higher levels of bacteria, has higher levels of histamine, and it's also not as appetizing, and you can get sick of eating the same food again and again. So I don't recommend that you do that. What I do in my own kitchen is I actually pre-chop things. So I'll have a bowl of pre-chopped parsley, pre-chopped arugula. I'll have pre-chopped onions, lettuce, cucumbers. Then if I need to make a fava bean salad in under 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I just take out all my Tupperwares, I boil my beans, I make the tahini sauce with yogurt, and I throw it all together. In 15 minutes, I can feed everyone. And this could be served for breakfast, this could be served for dinner. Very easy meal. And then I'm making sure that we're getting all of our greens and veggies at the same time. So it doesn't require me to sort of rack my brain every day. So the fact that I have things ready to go in the fridge makes it easier for me to use herbs every day in my cooking. I use herbs in my omelets, in my salads, in my burgers. I use them in so many different ways, but because they're ready and available in the kitchen and that I don't have to think about it all the time, I just have things sort of pre-organized for myself. So the shelf life for pre-chopped is if you're using things like dill or cucumber or ginger, it usually lasts about a day or two in the fridge. If you're using parsley or arugula, onions, leeks, garlics, zucchini, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, you can chop them, wash them, dry them, and put them in Tupperwares in the fridge, and then you could pull them out whenever you want. So if I had this in my fridge for breakfast, I could do parsley and leek and eggs, for instance, for breakfast. Or I might make broccoli with garlic sauteed in a pan, or I might make carrots with leek with chicken in the oven for dinner. So I have so many different options that I can cook within one day just because everything's ready for me, washed, peeled, and chopped. There are things that you can wash and chop and store it in water, such as potatoes. So potatoes can last 2 days in the fridge if they're peeled and chopped. This is uncooked. If they're cooked, they can also last in the fridge for about 3 to 4 days if they're boiled, peeled, chopped, and put into a Tupperware. Unwashed, you could use things like purslane, Swiss chard, and spinach. You can chop them without washing them, then store them in Tupperwares, and then only wash them just before you use them, because they tend to go bad faster if they're washed and then put into the fridge. They don't do well with water contact. So this list really helps me because I know exactly what to cook based on the Tupperwares that I have in the fridge of things that I can just pull together quickly. And it reduces the time from taking an hour to make a meal to taking 30 minutes to make a meal. So this is what often you'll find in my fridge. I have a Tupperware of chopped zucchinis. I always have chopped vegetables for my kids to nibble on. So if they're watching TV and I'm making dinner, and they're hungry, I will open up the Tupperware of cucumbers and carrots and just give it to them while they're watching TV as I make food. So that way they're not starving and looking for cookies. So they're already nibbling on something healthy. Or sometimes before they go to bed, they want a snack. I just pull out the Tupperware and it reduces the amount of time I'm in the kitchen because I've already done this before and prepped enough for 2 or 3 days. I also juice my lemons. So I tend to use a lot of lemons in my cooking. So I juice my lemon fresh. I don't buy the ready-made ones. I just juice 5 lemons, put them in a jar, keep them in the fridge, and this lasts about 4 or 5 days. Now, there's this concept that is that you cook once, but you eat twice. And this is honestly a game changer. You just have to plan your cooking around using the same ingredients in different ways. So for example, I'll boil potatoes. The first day I'll make potato burgers. The next day with the remaining boiled potatoes that I didn't use, I'll make a potato salad. So now I have dinner for 2 days that are veggie meals that I don't have to, so they can eat veggies for 2 days, but they're not eating the same food, so it's not boring. Same with grilled chicken. First day I'll grill the chicken and make chicken burger sandwiches. The next day I'll make a pasta like a fettuccine alfredo, and I'll put the grilled chicken on it. So the same grilled chicken will go into a burger. The next day it'll go into a pasta. Kids will think they've had 2 different meals. It's just saved me time in the kitchen from using the same equipment and the same stuff over and over again and cleaning over and over again. And just honestly, it's a game changer. Same with boiled chicken. I will often, first of all, I saute my chicken breast in a little bit of butter and olive oil, cook it both sides, and then I boil it. One portion I'll use for soup. The next portion I'll use for chicken sandwiches the next day. So this way, you'll find that the amount of time you spend in the kitchen just diminishes. So the potato burger recipe that I have for this week for the students is some people might call them fritters. They might be called cutlets. And really what I do is I combine eggs with the boiled potatoes that are mashed or shredded. I also saute leeks. I use cornstarch as well as some flour, and then and some onions, and then I pan sear them just on both sides. They're already mainly cooked. You just pan sear them to make them a little bit crispy and for them to become firm. And I serve them as burgers. So my kids will put ketchup and mayo and lettuce and pickles and everything like they would with a burger and eat it in a bun. And some of us like it was just like this, eaten with a fork and with a salad on the side. Now, the herb for this week is parsley. And most people are acquainted with parsley only as a garnish on their dish that's sometimes just used as decoration and people don't actually eat it. However, parsley is a powerhouse of nutrition. Now, parsley is known in other countries, like in Syria or in Fusha Arabic, it's called bakdunes. In Syrian, they say batdunes. The Turks, they call it maidones, and the Greeks call it maitones. So it has all similar pronunciations. You can see that this is a Mediterranean herb that's used across um, the entire region, and obviously in North America as well. It is a warming and drying herb, though it's very mild. So if you had a lot of it, you wouldn't feel like you've dried out and you wouldn't feel like you're really warm. I think it's more on the neutral side. I don't find it very drying. So even if I had a cup of parsley, I don't find that I've dried myself out. Its taste is sweet if you're eating the root, and the leaves are a little bit pungent. And the parts that could be used are the seeds, the roots, or the leaves. We most often use the leaves and some of the soft stems as well. Now, this plant is actually really good for urinary tract infections, edema, kidney stones. If you have delayed menses or if you have heart disease, this is a herb that's actually very beneficial. It's a diuretic, which means it helps you urinate. It's a carminative, so it relieves cramping in the stomach. It's an antioxidant. It also helps increase breast milk. So if you're breastfeeding, we were told, I remember this is long ago when I first had my first child, as soon as I gave birth, all the Syrian women would say, you have to make tabbouleh, which is like a parsley salad, and eat a bowl every day because this was going to increase milk supply. It's also an antispasmodic, expectorant, hypotensive, meaning it reduces high blood pressure. It could be used as a tea, as a deconcoction. It could be eaten as a food. You can also make parsley into a poultice. So if someone has an insect bite or eczema, there's also different ways that you could use it on the skin. So again, it's not just a garnish. It really, every single herb that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for us is medicinal. It has more than one action. And this is a problem with modern medicines, the way that the thinking that everyone's used to is everyone always says, oh, what herb can I take for this? And, associating a symptom to herb the way a pill is associated to a symptom. So if you have a headache, you take ibuprofen. But that's not the way herbs work. Herbs affect all the systems simultaneously. So they can change the way your skin feels, the way your stomach feels, the way your energy feels, the way your reproductive system functions. So they don't just function with one aspect. They don't just relieve headaches. They don't just get rid of menstrual issues. Whatever it is that's off balance in the body, it simultaneously rebalances everything so that you can become healthier, which is why incorporating herbs into your day-to-day life, if you incorporate herbs in everything that you eat, you drink, and I don't want you just to think of herbs as herbal tea. There's many other ways that you can incorporate herbs into your life, such as foods. You could use them as powders. You could use them as mouthwashes. Like you could do a mouthwash with sage, for instance. You could use licorice root as a toothstick if you don't have miswak. So herbs have so many different uses. You don't want to just think of it as a herbal tea from a tea bag that you dip for 5 minutes, because that's not going to give you the benefit that this actual herb has in store. There's so much more. You just have to spend a little bit of time learning it, inshallah. Parsley is rich in nutrients, vitamin C, A, K, minerals like calcium and magnesium and potassium. The parsley root in particular is very nourishing and blood building and is often compared to stinging nettle. So if you're used to using stinging nettle to build blood and nourish your body, you could easily use parsley root as well for that. The vitamin K content that it has contributes to bone health. It aids in calcium absorption and it reduces calcium excretion in urine. So again, these aren't things that you don't want to be taking a pill for all of these things. If you just incorporated this into your day-to-day life, you would be benefiting from it without even knowing it. So this is, for me, this is just part of my day-to-day routine. This is how we eat. It's actually quite low in calories. If you notice that 1 cup of parsley is only about 18 calories, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 16 calories. So very low in carbs, very low in sugars. It's got about 2 grams of protein per cup of parsley, a lot of calcium and a lot of potassium in it, and as well as significant amount of iron. So if you're iron deficient, these are one of the things that, if you incorporate into your diet, it's going to help improve your overall health, inshallah. So this is I'm sure a lot of you have heard of tabbouleh salad. It's mainly parsley. There's no lettuce in it. It has some cucumber, some mint leaves, onions, parsley, tomatoes, if you can have tomatoes. We also include fine bourguignon, which is like cracked wheat. You include that. If you can't have wheat, you can always use quinoa. And then we use lemon juice as well as olive oil. And the nutritional composition of this, you know, the calories is actually mainly from the oil because the oil is significant, but the oil helps the absorption of fruits, of vegetables. So anytime you have a vegetable, a lettuce, a herb, a tomato, any of these vegetables that you're eating, you need fat in order for you to make the nutrients bioavailable, meaning so that your body could absorb it. So don't be afraid of olive oil when you're eating it. And don't worry about the calorie count in terms of the oil has a lot of calories. The oil is part of the nutrition and it's part of the absorption, so it's much needed. But this is an amazing way to build blood and an amazing way to have a healthy lunch. And again, you could just have a grilled chicken with it, and you've got a complete meal, inshallah. So I want to hear back from you guys since I've been doing all the talking. Are you enjoying this class? And you can comment in the comment section in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, I'm happy to hear you out. Okay, alhamdulillah. I'm glad that you're liking it. So the Living by Design program is on a monthly basis. So the price is $99 per month, but that's for 6 months. So 99 every month for 6 months. And that started in January. So even if you enroll now and it's February, you would still be charged for 6 months because you're still getting the lessons that were done in January. It's still going to be part of the course. You're still going to be part of the WhatsApp group. We also have a community for the program, which I want to show you actually. Let me see if I can change screens. I'll change it in a minute. I only have 15 spots available. We have 35 students currently enrolled in the program, and I am going to close off registration next week because next week is going to be the 3rd class. And I don't want someone starting halfway through the program. I think it's best value is that when you start early on, that you're not having to do a lot of catch up. There's a workbook that's included in the course. There's also the herb monographs. There's also the just like habit builders and checklists, and I'll show you all of this inshallah. But I only have 15 spots. So if you're serious and interested in the program, I recommend that you sign up as quickly as possible because if you miss out, the next class is going to start in July, inshallah. I don't want to have a lot of students just because I like to have a healthy discussion where we can chat, and also because the WhatsApp group then becomes very overwhelming if there's more than 50 people in it with all the questions and conversations that go back and forth. There are 12 live lessons. So this is lesson 2 that you got today. If you join us for next week, then you would have only missed the first one. So it's only one that you have to catch up on. I include a recipe for every lesson. So every time I give you a lesson, I'm going to give you a recipe like you saw the potato burgers. I also include a food list. So you're going to get a list of all the high histamine foods. You're going to get a food list of what's seasonal foods. You're going to get a list of what's iron-rich foods. So anything that you're actually trying to balance out with your health, these lists are going to help you understand it a little bit better. So how to choose animal protein versus plant protein. So I don't want everyone eating animal protein every day. Part of the prophetic sunnah and the living by design is that we don't eat animals every day, that we have days that are just plant-based and veggie-based, and how to do that. I teach you that in the program. I also give you challenges, things that require you to sort of do your own learning, like what plants are growing locally in your market, just different things that you could do on a monthly basis. So I only give you 6 challenges, so not to overwhelm you. The course runs every 2 weeks, and the reason for that is that you have enough time to implement the herbs that we talk about, to start using them, to start drinking the herbal teas. You have time to make the recipe, to tweak the recipe for your own family, how you like it. It's so that it's not a stressed environment, and you have a chance to continually ask questions through the WhatsApp group and through the community platform, inshallah. And you'll have access to me for like the entire 6 months, inshallah, or until June 30th, until the class ends. So I'm going to open it up for question and answer. I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to reshare again. I'm going to show you the workbooks that's included. So this is what the recipe looks like when I give you the recipes. You'll receive that with the instructions. And then I also have the workbook. So the workbook gives you actual questions that you need to answer just so that you're interacting and learning. It'll give you a summary of all the class slides. It'll give you things that you need to implement, my list, and then ways for you to incorporate your list. So you get to write down your own meals that are less than 30 minutes, less than 60 minutes, your own ideas for what you would serve as a soup or a salad with the meal if you need to, what you would offer as a main course. And then when you write these lists and have them ready made, it makes it so much easier to just cook day to day. And then knowing what to cook once and eat twice, how to prepare for grocery shopping, all the list of foods. And then this is the habit tracker. So here in the first lesson, when we did on goals, we talked about the importance of your morning and evening adhkars, and then your reading of 30 minutes of Quran a day, eating greens and bitters every day, taking a 20-minute walk outdoors every day, drinking 1 cup of herbal tea every day, and planning the next day's meals the night before. And these little habits actually do so much for your health as well as for your like just organization and preparation. Doing your morning adhkars, evening adhkars gives you so much barakah. The Quran is a source of healing and a source of basira and barakah. These are all habits that just make life so much easier. And when you start to build it and do it first, you'll start to find that everything else just becomes easier, which is why we stress this in the first class, so that we're not only just focused on the dunya stuff of cooking, but we're also building who we are, even if we're going to be in the kitchen. So for instance, if I'm cooking in the kitchen, some of my students are doing adhkars. I might be listening to Surah Al-Baqarah while I cook. So we make sure that our experience in the kitchen isn't a place of stress. I interact with my herbs. I allow myself to smell them, to feel calmer when I'm chopping them and I'm smelling them. So these are things that actually just help me feel better when I'm cooking. And I don't like cooking when I'm stressed. So I don't want it to be a negative relationship in the kitchen. And I do stress that for everyone as well. And these are some of the habits that I've instilled in my life that I think are beneficial, that will help everyone else as well. I also give you Quranic reflections. So all the Quranic ayats that I found that are mentioning food, I put them in this workbook so that you can also reflect on them and have your own thoughts. And then I give you a herb monograph and it looks like this. It tells you about the herb. Again, a little bit more summary, what it's used for, the additional recipe that was included here as well. And then I'm going to open it up to questions, inshallah. You can just raise your hand if you want to ask a question and I'll try to read the chat box. Dr. Shahzadi, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum
barakatuh.
salam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you? Great to hear your voice again.
Nice to hear your voice too.
Yeah, just I want to say I don't have time to continue your classes. That is the main reason, shortage of time for me. But can I get your book that I can purchase from you? You are teaching from where you are teaching.
Oh, that book, inshallah, I'm going to be releasing it, inshallah. I'll let you all know once that book is released.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Okay.
way, if you're not able to take the class, because it might not be affordable for everyone, or time restraints or multiple priorities, then inshallah they can still use the book. Inshallah, that'll be released. I'm hoping before Ramadan, but we'll see.
Okay. So this book is you were writing some book that is it is the same or it is different?
I have a few books. So there's the there's the Islamic Medicines Guide to the Body Types. You have that book,
Yes.
right? So the other book, the Nurasunna book that I'm writing, I haven't finished. But
Yeah.
this Living by Design is it's a transformational journal. So it's the transformative journal that I have that I'll be launching, inshallah. You're the first to hear about it. I haven't told anyone
Inshallah.
yet.
Thank you very much.
So that
And
will be
best
a
of luck.
journal where people can actually interact with like how to transform on their own if they wanted to do it on their own. And it'll have some of the lessons from the class as well.
Okay. Thank you
But I'll
very
let
much.
everyone know when that's ready.
Inshallah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Any other questions? So rice cooked and stored in the fridge, again, typically 2 to 3 days. Any dish you cook, once it's stored in the fridge, it starts to add in histamine, and it starts to increase in bacterial composition. So if you're eating something that's 5 days old, you have a higher chance of getting sick from that food. So it's better to eat food that's fresh. So cook smaller foods, cook simpler foods so that you're eating that one meal and it's finished, and then the next day something else that you can eat. In the class, I also focus a lot on simple foods so that we're not only looking at how to make heavy dishes all the time. It's more about how to cook simple foods that's going to be nourishing and filling, and that no one's complaining that it's not a heavy dish. You don't need to eat meat to feel full. And the potato burgers are actually a really good example of that. Is it okay to eat fruits along with cooked foods like rice or pasta? Depends on the fruit. Watermelon, no. Watermelon is best if it's eaten alone, not with other fruits and not with other foods, just because it has a high water content and can dilute your digestive juices. But other foods that are acidic, they tend to help digestion. So lemons, grapefruits, oranges, clementines, some fruits like apples, because they're cooling, drying, they're a little bit astringent. Some fruits actually help enhance digestion, so it's recommended after a meal to eat them. Don't forget, the Prophet Muhammad SAW used to eat dates with his food. So he would start with 3 dates when he was fasting, or a number of dates when he was fasting. And then some people even eat dates after their meal. So there's no issues with eating fruits with food. Again, so long as you're not overeating, and so long as you're not miscombining. Some of them don't work well together. So I think melon is really the only one you're not supposed to have with your meal. So question about, if one's goal is to lose weight, should I take the opposite energy food? I'm phlegmatic. Do I take warming and drying foods and meals? What's the hack? The most important thing is to learn to eat the smaller portions. So a phlegmatic body type is the body type that can build with very little. So a phlegmatic body type doesn't need a lot of food. It needs very little in order for it to build fat and muscle and everything else. At the same time, you don't want to be starving phlegmatic body type. Phlegmatic body type does better when it's eating less of the wheat, meat, and dairy. Not to say that you can't eat it, but if you're eating it 3 times a day, if you're having wheat 3 times a day, if you're having dairy 3 times a day, if you're eating meat every day, that's very heavy for a phlegmatic body type, and it's not going to allow it to lose weight. Fasting, if you were to fast Mondays and Thursdays for 3 months, you would notice a difference. And again, so long as there's no overeating, and so long as we're not doing, like sodas every day and chocolate bars every day, these things would interfere with weight loss. At the end of the day, weight loss is about how much energy are you expending versus how much energy are you taking in. So if a phlegmatic body type only needs 1,500 calories, and I'm using that only as an example, and you're eating 2,000 calories, then you're going to gain weight because of that extra difference. In order to lose, I think to lose 1 pound a week, you need to reduce your calorie consumption by like 3,500 calories per week, which is like 500 calories a day, like shaving off 500 calories a day in order for you to lose weight. So, but again, for a phlegmatic body type, it really doesn't do very well with carbs and dairy and meat because they're heavy, and it's a system that already doesn't need that heaviness. It's already cold and damp. So to say, should I be eating warming and drying foods? No, because if you're eating warming and drying foods, but it's again not in the right quantity, or not in the, like, you still need carbs, you still need meats, you still need other things. And I explained that a little bit more about the energetics of foods, because everything is considered sweet. Like wheat is sweet, fat is sweet, because anything that nourishes the body has the sweet taste. But you need to have better liver function, better gallbladder function, better digestive function, These are the things that actually helps you lose weight. So the 20-minute walk a day, the eating in balance, the eating a third, these are all things that are going to help improve weight loss. And again, a lot of phlegmatics that I know, they lose weight when they fast. So that's really one of the best ways to do it. Farah, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I've got some homegrown spinach, and I'm not eating it as far. We're a small family at the moment, so we're not eating it as fast as it's growing. Is there any way that you would suggest to store it?
You can freeze it, but what you'd have to do is blanch it first,
Mm.
and then squeeze the water out, and then freeze it.
So blanch, cut, take the water out, and then cut, and then freeze.
So you would cut it first,
Cut it first, and then blanch it.
blanch
Okay.
it, strain it, just make sure there's no water, and then freeze it into like little Ziploc bags, and then you could use it.
Okay. Okay. Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyaki. So question here is, what do you think of oil of oregano? I'm choleric. Oil of oregano, depending on what you're using it for, oil of oregano is an antibiotic type of a herb. It's quite potent, quite hot. So if you're already hot and dry as a choleric, it's going to make you very hot and dry, to the point where when I used to use oil of oregano, I would get chapped lips from the amount of heat that it puts into the body. Unless you're sick, I wouldn't just take it for the heck of taking it. There's so many other ways that you could be enhancing your immune system, reducing illnesses, just with naturally eating things that incorporate this. So you can eat oregano into you can put it in your salads, you can eat oregano with your cooking. You can even have oregano tea, which is much milder than the oil of oregano. I'm not huge on processed things. So any type of supplements or anything processed and made by a company that's going to be sold to me is going to be my second or third choice. My number one choice is always going to be, how can I get it from directly from the foods that I eat? Because that's the least amount of processing. You're waiting for the Nurasunna book. Yes, inshallah. Inshallah. I'm working on it. Alhamdulillah, yeah, I'm excited about the journal. I just wanted to finish it. I wasn't planning on announcing it today, but it just so happened that I was asked. So inshallah, I'm hoping that that will be ready in the next few weeks so that we could launch it. At what age can you have your child on black seed? You can have your child on black seed. I started my kids from a very early age. So if they were 6 months old and they had a cold, I would grind a little bit and I could either use black seed oil. You could give very small drops because it's not like oil of oregano where it's going to burn, but it is going to give them the medicinal benefit. So as early as 6 months, I've used it on my own kids. It doesn't really have any negative side effects. You just want to use a small quantity because it could be drying if you take too much. But my 3-year-old like take pinches of black seed and she'll eat it. So she's quite used to it now. So when I say don't pre-cook and store in the fridge, I want you to chop your parsley so that you've got parsley in the fridge whenever you want to make a salad or an omelet, or you want to use parsley in your potato burgers, you have parsley ready in the fridge. So when you chop once, when you spend the time just chopping all your vegetables, washing, chopping, storing, drying, then you can cook a lot quicker in the week. You can come home and whip up a meal in 30 minutes because everything's already chopped. Your onions are chopped, your garlic is shredded, your ginger is shredded. You've got potatoes maybe that are cut. You've got zucchini that's cut. So if you're going to make a meal that has zucchinis, it's going to be ready for you to cook it right away. So if I was sauteing ground beef with zucchini, I could whip that meal up in less than 30 minutes because everything's already in my fridge. It's already chopped. And that's the fastest way to make fresh food every day without a lot of work because you already did the prep work once or twice in the week. And I encouraged in my first class that when you're doing the prep work that you have a kitchen buddy who does it with you or for you. So your husband or your kids or your in-laws or your best friend, whoever you're spending time with can spend time with you in the kitchen helping you prep these things and getting them. And it doesn't take a lot of time to prep because when I'm chopping parsley, it's more work to actually chop the parsley, then wash the board and put it away and then do that every day. Whereas if you just chop 2 batches of parsley in one shot, wash it, strain it, dry it, put it in the fridge and wash the cutting board, then I don't have to wash that cutting board every day. So even though you might be saving only 2 minutes, 5 minutes on every item, it adds up and then it just feels like everything moves faster. Is it okay to freeze chopped vegetables? Depends on which ones. So things like beans do well in the freezer. I wouldn't freeze zucchinis. I wouldn't freeze cooked rice. There's a few things I wouldn't freeze. And I'm not huge on freezing. I prefer to cook again fresh because that retains the most nutrients. Assalamu alaikum. The program is well prepared, but I don't think I can handle it right now. That's not a problem, inshallah. Whenever you're ready, I just wanted you all to know that it's here. Inshallah, I hope to see you all there. If you're a melancholic body type and you feel low energy, how can you increase it? Again, it depends on your diet, what you're consuming, what you're not eating. I would start with honey because honey improves digestion, honey improves energy levels. So if you're drinking your honey water, if you're taking a tablespoon of honey per day, there are even things like I do recommend juicing. So if you can juice once or twice a week, it can help with the energy absorption. The thing is, I mean, it just depends on the root cause of why you have low energy. If it is that you're not eating enough of the right foods, you're going to have low energy. If you're having difficulty digesting the food, you're going to have low energy. So you would want to get to the root cause. If you're anemic, if you're not sleeping well enough, if you're not sleeping on time, these are all things that I could, do a little bit better assessing if we were doing a one-on-one coaching call. It's hard to give just general advice without knowing if you're on medication, other health issues, and stuff like that. What should we be looking out for when buying black seed oil? So many options, hard to know which is good. Honestly, I'm not sure because you're right. There's so many different brands. Where are you? Are you in Canada or UK? You can, Beth, you can private message me because I know you were in the masterclass. You can message me in the masterclass WhatsApp group, and I'll answer you with the brands, depending on your country, the brands that I know that other people use that they recommend. But I buy locally, and it's honestly, I'm not sure if it's the best. I don't use black seed oil much. I use the actual seed itself. So is the Sunnah 7 seeds of black seed? Is that what's recommended? No. Black seed, 7 seeds is only when you're grinding it to snuff it. So snuffing is when you put it up your nose. If you're going to consume black seed as medicine or for maintenance, and I don't recommend that you take black seed every day for life. That's not what the Sunnah teaches. It is a medicine. So if you're not feeling well, if your energy is not good, if you have digestive issues, if you're having an allergic reaction, these are all suitable times to take the black seed. But you would have to take about 1/4 of a teaspoon of the actual seeds, chew and swallow it in order for you to get the medicinal benefits. The 7 seeds in the hadith is specific to inhaling it through your nose because you can't do a large amount through the nose. So 7 seeds is like the most that you could do up the nose. So if you have children that have constipation, then honey water, if they're 3 and 4 years old, honey water is the best thing. Senna can cause a little bit of cramping. I don't recommend giving senna to children. First of all, it can become addictive if they take it too often. Things like honey water is very beneficial. Children tend to like the taste, so you can give them honey water in the morning, honey water in the evening, and that helps move their bowel system a little bit better. Feed them things like cucumbers. Just have them eat cucumbers. My children like to sprinkle a little bit of salt on it. These are all things that help move the bowels as well. So the more veggies and fruits that they eat that have a high water content, the better they're going to be able to have bowel movements. No, 7 seeds, to consume just 7 seeds of black seed is not potent enough for the whole body. That is only the dose for the nose. As for tips for Ramadan, I'm going to have a webinar for Ramadan, how to get ready for Ramadan and how to eat in Ramadan, inshallah. So I think, what are we today? The 6th? In about a month, in about almost 4 weeks, I have a Ramadan webinar coming, inshallah. If you're caloric, but you have mucus stuck in the back of your throat, it could be that you have excessive yeast in your digestive system. It could be that you're eating foods that are too heavy, they're too oil-based, or they're too fatty, too much meat, or too much dairy, or too much wheat. All of these things build mucus. So if you don't have any high blood pressure or heart disease, then licorice root is the best root to help clear mucus from the body. But you don't want to overdo that as well. So you might do a cup a day, but for 4 or 5 days, but then stop using it. And then if you need it again, you could use it again. Again, use it as medicine. It's not something you want to be consuming every day, but it's better to adjust the diet that's causing this issue in the first place. Can you prepare black seed oil at home? Not the way that they make it in the stores. The way they make it in the stores is they actually grind it and like squeeze it. If you want to do it at home, the only way to do it is to sort of low simmer it with olive oil, and that way you're sort of extracting the nutrients and putting it into the olive oil, or steeping it in olive oil for like 6 or 8 weeks. But I'm not sure if you're going to get the same benefit. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan went very well after the masterclass. Inshallah, this one too. Yes, if you've learned from the masterclass, or you're learning from this course, or you've read the Ramadan remedy, then you know the tricks that I teach about how to have a healthy Ramadan, inshallah. And I'll be teaching that in a few weeks. What's my opinion on maple syrup versus honey and regular milk versus raw milk? So maple syrup and honey are two different things. Maple syrup doesn't have the same medicinal properties that honey does. Honey, even if it was 3,000 years old, does not rot. Honey is mentioned in the Quran as shifa. So there's only two things in the Quran mentioned as shifa. One is the Quran and one is honey. It doesn't mention anything else in the Quran as shifa. And shifa means a cure. It doesn't mean it's healing or nutritional or beneficial or any of that stuff. When it's called a shifa, that means it's a cure for whatever issue that you have. So only honey and the Quran in the Quran are mentioned as a cure, as a shifa in the Quran. So we can't put them on the same scale. North America calls honey as a sugar. They say it's a sweetener, it's a sugar, it's you know, there's a lot of negative talk about honey, and comparing it to just a sweetener when it's not. Honey is a medicine. It's a food. It completely cleanses the entire digestive system. It is a prebiotic and a probiotic. So it contains all the right mixtures of everything that your body needs in order for it to heal. It has the pollens from the plants that are going to help you become immune to the plants of your local area. I can go on and on about honey. I could write a book about honey. So I wouldn't compare it to maple syrup. If you're going to eat something that's going to be a prebiotic, probiotic, that's going to help you heal, maple syrup is not going to cure a cough. Maple syrup is not going to cure gut flora imbalance, whereas honey would. So maple syrup to me is a sweetener. It's a sweet taste from a plant. It's kind of like having, you know, banana, something that's sweet. It's just a sweet food. It's not a medicine, whereas honey is a medicine. Two different categories. Regular milk versus raw milk. Well, raw milk is mentioned also in the hadith. It is a cure for many diseases because it contains all the enzymes and healthy bacteria that's supposed to be in the milk. Regular milk, because it's been pasteurized, has killed off all the enzymes and the bacterias. So you're still getting some of the benefits, but you're not getting as much as if you were consuming it raw. So the Prophet Muhammad SAW, when he was drinking milk, it was raw milk that they were consuming. They were not boiling it. This was all stuff that was invented about 150 years ago before then. And to this day, in many parts of the world, people still consume milk raw. I consume milk raw for years without any issues. Raw milk is not inflammatory, whereas the pasteurized milk is more inflammatory, especially the way they're raised also in the feedlots that they have them in. وإياكم. Can you have honey when you're diabetic? Yes, there are studies on honey not affecting your, not being negative for diabetics. You would have to start with small quantities, and you would have to measure your blood sugar levels. But there's other things you could do for your diabetes, like black seed. There's a lot of different herbs that you could do. There's a lot of dietary modifications you could do. You could actually still reverse diabetes, and then still be able to enjoy everything else. But honey, for the most part, many studies show that it is safe for diabetics. It's just about the quantity that's being used. Honey water is best taken in the morning on an empty stomach. It can also be taken after a meal if you want to boost digestion. What do you think about nuts? I'm choleric. I have around 100 grams of almonds a day to keep my weight stable. I do follow a clean diet. So nuts are hot and dry, and caloric is hot and dry. I don't know how much 100 grams is. Like, is that a handful? Is that 2 handfuls? I don't know how much that would be of almonds. But if you are going to have almonds every day, it should be like the size of like half your palm, like a very small bowl of almonds. The reason for it is almonds are seeds, right? These are seeds that produce trees. They are higher in fats, but they're also high in histamine as well. So people who tend to have histamine intolerance, or their bodies are reacting, or it gets too hot internally, it comes from dried fruits and dried um, nuts like this. So you would want to be careful, because sometimes you think you're eating something healthy, but you could be having negative side effects in your system that you don't know is caused from that. And so if you're choleric, I don't suggest that you eat a lot of dried nuts, because it is hot and dry, everything in balance. And I don't know what you mean to keep your weight stable. Does that mean it drops too much or it rises too much? So any honey that you're buying that is coming from more of a farmer's market is going to be better. If you're buying from like Costco or big box stores, those tend to be like, honey should be very thick. It shouldn't be very watery. If you put honey in water and you stir it, it wouldn't dissolve. It would need hours to dissolve on its own. So if you can put it in a cup of cold water and it just dissolves quickly, that's not really honey. That's watered down honey. How do we know that we are third stomach filled and stop eating? So your stomach is the size of this water bottle. I don't know if can you see it? Your stomach is, the entire stomach is about this size. So a third of a water bottle is 250 milliliters. This is a 750 milliliter bottle. This is the size of a third of your stomach. And if you actually took that and put it to your chest, right in between your rib cage and your stomach and your belly button, think of it. Do you really want to fill this all with food inside of your system? Because it needs space. Your body needs food, water, and space in order for it to churn like a washing machine. If you fill it all, then you won't have any room for digestion. And all of our stomachs are about the same size, about 750 milliliters to 1,000 milliliters, if we're just a little bit bigger or smaller. The only time our stomach gets bigger is if we keep overfilling it. It forces itself to bloat, so it has air for it to churn. And then you keep expanding the size of your stomach, and then you have to keep filling it because now it's expanded. So it kind of creates a negative cycle where you're constantly eating more to fill your stomach, and your stomach keeps expanding because it needs space to digest. I have read that ACC to Tibbet Nabawi, we shouldn't eat eggs along with milk. It causes issues. Is that true? So there's in the book, Ibn al-Qayyim's book, there's a page about what foods shouldn't be combined. This isn't from prophetic medicine. This was from the medicine of their time. This was their belief about certain foods. So you can eat eggs with milk. The thing is that milk is cold and damp, and eggs are maybe warm and moist. So it just does affect the composition of your like what you're combining. If you eat too many damp things, then it's going to be difficult for your stomach to digest it. But it's not against prophetic medicine. If you eat milk and you have eggs, it's not against prophetic medicine. Can I touch on foods for perimenopausal and menopause? No, I can't in this webinar, unfortunately, because we're going off topic with regards to that. I did have a webinar on that for perimenopausal in terms of herbs, but I can't. It's difficult to sort of answer that question in just like a 5-minute Q&A session. It would take an entire webinar for that. I don't have any brands of honey that I could recommend because everything's so different from one country to the next. We used to eat nuts, but since 2 years ago, we developed allergies to even coconuts. And so it might not be allergies, it might just be histamine intolerance. And histamine intolerance is when your body can't digest the amount of histamines that you're consuming. Nuts are high in histamine, dried fruits are high in histamine, tomatoes have high histamine, bananas, clementines, chocolates, olives, fermented cheeses. Many foods that we eat have high histamine. So if we're consuming too much of the high histamine, and especially if you have a gut flora imbalance, you can start to get allergic reactions without actually being allergic to the food. So sometimes if you only eat one and you react, then it's an allergy. But if you eat one and you don't react, then it's not an allergy. It could just be histamine intolerance. And inshallah, I do plan to do a webinar on that as well, how to differentiate between allergies and histamine intolerance. So how should we consume black seed in light of the sunnah, and how often is harmful? So you can eat black seed every day. So let's just say I'm currently imbalanced, I'm not feeling well. I can have black seed every day, a quarter of a teaspoon, chew and swallow it. I can have that every day for 6 months, and that's not an issue. It's not harmful. The black seed has no negative side effects. There's no, you can't become addicted to it. So there's no issues and concerns when it comes to black seed. The sunnah doesn't tell you how much to eat. The sunnah tells you to eat black seed as a healing, as a shifa for everything. I'm not of the belief that we should just be eating things as a precaution, like eating black seed every day for life as a precaution, because that's not the way it was mentioned. It was mentioned as a medicine, whereas honey was mentioned as a food for every day. So honey was something that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ ate every day, whereas black seed was not. That's why I make the distinction. But it's not harmful. You would know if you had too much, you would feel a little bit dry in your throat if you ate too much of it every day. So my son catches colds and flus and produces a lot of mucus. Is licorice tea something I could use for him? He is melancholic. Licorice tea is generally safe for everyone, so long as he doesn't have high blood pressure or heart disease. If you buy a lot of the stores, if you go to them and you buy their tea bags, they have licorice root in it. So if you just look at the herbal tea packages that they sell, the ready-made ones, you can get licorice root in many of them and just use a blend that they have, and that would help with the mucus as well. Black seed would also help with the mucus. Oregano would also help. There's a lot of other herbs other than licorice root, but licorice is good at liquefying mucus, so and reducing it. So I'm going to end it here, inshallah. So for treating sinus allergies, there's Kustil Hindi, which is a prophetic remedy for sinus issues. Eating honey also reduces allergies because your body becomes more immune to the pollen in that area. Black seed is an antihistamine, reduces allergies. Kustil Hindi is an antihistamine for allergies and sinuses. So these are the two prophetic herbs that you could use: honey, black seed, and Kustil Hindi. But Kustil Hindi, you would have to snuff it, and black seed, you'd have to snuff it. You can't just ingest it. You can ingest it, but you should also snuff it into the nose because that's the fastest way to get it into the sinus cavity. You can't add black seed to water and drink it. The reason is if you don't chew it, it's going to come out exactly as it went in. If you're not chewing and grinding the black seed in your mouth, then it's going to come out exactly as it went in. And so that's not going to benefit you. How do we give honey every day to kids, especially in the Canadian weather, as they are prone to flu and sickness often? I did the other way around. If you use honey as a food every day, I mean, you can add honey to anything. You could do sourdough bread, toast it on both sides, put a little butter and honey, and that's a breakfast. Just feed it to them that way. So long as they're consuming honey with their food, you could put it on their granola. So if they're having milk with granola, you could just drizzle a teaspoon of honey on it, or you could just feed them a teaspoon of honey. I do that with my kids before they go out. I just give them a teaspoon of honey to eat, and off they go. Any alternatives to packed sandwiches, cheese, and triangle cheeses? Not in this presentation. So do we grind the black seed and then snuff it? If you are grinding it, you would use a mortar and pestle. So you would grind it that way, or you would use a little coffee grinder to grind it, so long as you're not using the coffee grinder for anything else. Then you would take a little bit and snuff it that way. But if you want to do the 7 seeds, you would have to do it in a mortar pestle. It wouldn't work in the machine. Any good foods for gut flora? Yes, I cover that all in the masterclass. So if you haven't taken the masterclass, I cover a lot in there. I also have a course on gut flora that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks, inshallah. So that will cover it. A lot of foods. It's a huge list. I wouldn't be able to give you just one. Honey is a probiotic food. Olives is a probiotic food. You sort of have to know where your gut flora is at, how to measure it, and then how to restore it. You know, you have to look at your tongue. You have to look at your stools. These are all things that give you indication as to what's going on in the gut. Jazakumullahu khairan, everyone, for coming. I look forward to seeing you guys, inshallah, in next week's class, if you can make it. Thank you so much for coming. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.